You are one belief away from changing how your brain allocates effort, reads feedback, and decides what's worth your time. Not a slogan, a mechanism. When you choose a belief that aligns with learning over fear, you flip a switch in the brain's valuation system that prioritizes useful signals and mutes noise. Think of it as updating the operating system that runs your motivation. The same deadline, the same comment, the same challenge can feel crushing or energizing, depending on the story your cortex tells the rest of your nervous system. That story is editable. Tonight. As a neurologist and cognitive scientist, I want you to notice what happens when you shift from "I must prove myself" to "I am here to learn fast." Attention sharpens, distraction loses pull, errors become data instead of threats. This isn't wishful thinking. It's the practical way to aim neuroplasticity at what matters. If you're tired of pushing with willpower alone, this video will hand you a different lever. Belief as a tool to direct focus, effort, and recovery. Stay with me, because in a few minutes, you'll run a simple test on your own mind and feel the difference in real time. The belief switch that rewires behavior. Picture two people hearing the same hard truth about their performance. One freezes, invents excuses, and quietly avoids the next challenge. The other takes a breath, asks one clarifying question, and makes a targeted change by tomorrow morning. The gap isn't luck or genetics. It's the silent instruction each person gives the brain about what this moment means. When your belief labels feedback as a threat, your nervous system diverts energy into defense, scanning for social danger and protecting identity. When your belief labels feedback as training data, the same system shifts resources into analysis, adjustment, and execution. You don't get more hours in the day, you get more usable attention per hour. That's the belief switch at work, and it's the most efficient performance upgrade you can make without buying a single tool. Think of your brain as a valuation engine that never stops bidding on what deserves energy. A deliberate belief is the configuration file for that engine. If the running script is, "I must not be wrong," then errors feel like verdicts and attention narrows to self-protection. If the running script is, "I am here to learn fast," then errors register as coordinates and attention locks onto what can be improved. Belief changes the felt meaning of effort. Effort stops being a tax and becomes an investment with expected return. That shift alone increases willingness to tolerate temporary friction, the kind that comes with practicing a hard skill or reworking a plan under pressure. You feel the same discomfort, but your brain interprets it as productive load, not danger. And when discomfort signals progress, persistence follows almost automatically. This is not about pretending everything is fine. Belief is not a mask. It is an instruction set for where to point limited cognitive resources. You are choosing what to value under uncertainty. Choose poorly, and your system will optimize for image management. Choose well, and it will optimize for skill acquisition. There is a simple test. Bring to mind a current challenge you've been postponing. Name it in one sentence. Then answer two questions. What specific outcome would prove you learned something today? And what single action moves you 1 unit closer to that outcome? When you do this, notice how your attention reorganizes. The challenge feels less like a wall and more like a map with a first step. That sensation is your valuation system updating. You just shifted from defending identity to upgrading capability. Belief also alters how feedback is weighted. Under a defensive script, criticism hits like static and gets discarded, even if it contains a valuable signal. Under a learning script, the same criticism is parsed for actionable detail. Your brain detects patterns faster because it is not burning cycles on saving face. Over days and weeks, this creates a compounding effect. You aren't simply working harder, you are converting a greater percentage of experience into improvement. Progress begins to feel inevitable, not because you avoid difficulty, but because difficulty has become data you know how to use. Confidence shows up last, as evidence accumulates. That's durable confidence, anchored in results rather than reassurance. Here is the most practical way to flip the switch today. State the belief out loud. This is training data. Pair it with a concrete metric like minutes of focused practice, number of iterations, or one measurable improvement in clarity, speed, or quality. Then set a short window and execute. When you finish, reinforce the process by logging what changed in your understanding and what you will adjust next. This small loop does two things. It teaches your brain that effort leads to useful information, and it rewards the act of learning itself. The loop becomes satisfying, and satisfaction sustains repetition. With repetition, your baseline belief is no longer a pep talk. It is a reflex. The person who freezes and the person who adapts are not different species. They are running different instructions in the same machine. One belief routes energy into defense and delay. The other routes energy into discovery and delivery. Choose the second on purpose, and the system follows. That is the belief switch that rewires behavior, and you can flip it whenever you decide that progress matters more than protection. Appraisal engines: how meaning builds reality. Right now, your brain is running a prediction about what the next minute means for you. That prediction is not a passive guess. It is an instruction set that tells attention what to track, emotion how to color the moment, and the body where to send energy. Call this the appraisal engine. When your appraisal says this task threatens your status, you feel pressure, your field of view narrows, and you default to habits that minimize exposure. When your appraisal says this task is a worthwhile challenge that advances your goals, the same systems mobilize for exploration, precision, and follow-through. The external scene does not change. The internal meaning does, and meaning is what your nervous system acts on. Appraisal is built from three ingredients: the story you tell about the situation, the goal you care about in this context, and the evidence your brain highlights to support that story. The process is fast and mostly automatic, which is why days can slide by in the same loop. But automatic does not mean unchangeable. You can intercept the loop by making meaning explicit. Ask what is the job here, not the drama. Translate vague pressure into specific criteria. Replace generalities like "this is too much" with actionable units like "this requires 20 minutes of focused drafting and one decision." The moment you do that, attention has something concrete to hold, and your physiology shifts from bracing to doing. You feel the difference as a drop in friction and a rise in clarity. There's a reason this works under stress. The brain prefers predictions that conserve energy and reduce uncertainty. A threat appraisal promises relief through avoidance, which feels good now but costs you later. A challenge appraisal promises relief through resolution, which demands effort now and pays you with progress. Both are rational strategies in the abstract. The question is, which one gets you the life you want? When you choose challenge on purpose, you are teaching your system that effort is the shortest path to safety because it reduces the unknown. Over time, the appraisal engine learns to bias toward action by default, not because you are fearless, but because you have evidence that moving forward ends discomfort faster than hiding from it. To make this reliable, you need an implementation ritual that takes seconds, not minutes. When you feel the urge to postpone, pause and name the appraised meaning in one sentence, then upgrade it to a useful version. "This meeting will expose my weak points" becomes "this meeting will tell me exactly what to improve to hit the target." "My inbox is out of control" becomes "my next 3 messages determine the next clear step." The phrasing matters because attention obeys language. What you name becomes the anchor for what you notice, and what you notice becomes the feedstock for decisions. You are not lying to yourself. You are choosing a meaning that keeps you aligned with outcomes you've already decided you value. Appraisal also shapes how you integrate feedback across time. If you define yourself by a fixed snapshot, any negative signal feels like erosion. If you define yourself by a moving average, individual dips register as transient variance within an upward trend. The moving average identity is not just kinder, it is more accurate for learners who iterate. With that frame, you can accept sharp feedback without collapse because the hit is partitioned to the process, not your worth. Your engine then pulls the exact details you need and discards the noise. This is the heart of composure under pressure. Not suppressing emotion, but updating meaning fast enough that emotion supports the task. Here's how to rehearse it today. Choose a task you've been avoiding. State the threat, meaning you've been running. Translate it to a challenge, meaning that contains a measurable action and a time box. Start the action immediately, even for 5 minutes. When done, write one sentence about what changed in your understanding. That sentence closes the loop and teaches your appraisal engine to expect value next time. Repeat this loop a few times and you will notice a baseline shift. The same triggers that once pulled you into resistance now cue you to define the job and move. That is meaning doing its real job, which is to turn uncertainty into a sequence you can execute. Dopamine as a focus lens, not just a reward. Dopamine is not a happiness button. It is the brain's way of tagging what deserves your attention right now and what should be strengthened later. Think of it as a focus lens that sharpens the contours of the most useful signals in a sea of distraction. When a task aligns with a meaningful goal and a clear next step, dopamine increases the signal-to-noise ratio. You notice the detail that matters, feel more willing to expend effort, and encode the experience more deeply. When the environment is cluttered with novelty without purpose, dopamine scatters across too many targets, making you busy without becoming better. The difference is not in how loudly you hype yourself. It's in how precisely you tell your brain what to value and when to rest. There are 3 leverage points you can use today. The first is context. Your brain calibrates dopamine to the situation you are in, not the situation you wish you were in. If your context screams multitask, you will get micro hits of novelty and a macro deficit in progress. Build a context that points dopamine at one worthy problem at a time. Define a single objective in a single block of time and make the first action physically easy to start. When friction at the start drops, your brain interprets forward motion as success and commits more energy to the sequence. The second leverage point is effort-contingent reinforcement. Reward the process immediately after a bout of real effort, not before you begin and not only when you hit a perfect outcome. This pairs the neurochemical satisfaction with the behavior you want repeated, teaching your system that focused work is intrinsically worth it. The third leverage point is recovery. Dopamine is finite in the short term. Without deliberate off-ramps, you flatten motivation and numb focus. Short resets protect the lens so it can stay sharp. Dopamine also shapes what your memory keeps. During a focused bout, tagging the right cues increases the probability that your brain will replay and consolidate those patterns later. That's why a clean objective and a brief reflection at the end of a session matter. You are telling the system which part of the experience was the lesson. 2 sentences are enough. What did you actually improve, and what will you adjust next time? This tiny, close-down routine turns a block of work from a blur into a blueprint. Over time, those blueprints stack into intuition. What once felt like effortful control becomes automatic selection of the right move at the right moment. Misuse dopamine and the lens warps. Chase constant stimulation and you build tolerance to novelty, which makes ordinary work feel flat and pushes you to seek more inputs instead of deeper outputs. Use dopamine as a spotlight and you become less interested in noise and more motivated by traction. The emotional tone changes. You stop needing to feel excited before you begin. You begin and let traction produce the satisfaction. This flips a common mistake on its head. The goal is not to raise arousal and hope focus follows. The goal is to narrow focus so meaningful arousal shows up to support the task. In practice, this feels like moving from scattered urgency to calm intensity. Here is a practical sequence to make the lens work for you. Choose one task with a clear finish line. Define the first 90 seconds of action in concrete terms. Remove one source of novelty you don't need for this block. Start immediately and do not assess quality until you have crossed a small checkpoint. When you reach it, label what improved and give yourself a small specific reward that marks closure, like a quick walk or a satisfying check-in note. Then pause. That pause is not lost time. It is what resets the lens so the next block can be crisp. Run this cycle twice, and you will feel a shift in how compelling the work becomes. That pull is not luck. It is your brain learning to value the right things at the right time. When dopamine behaves like a focus lens instead of a prize machine, deep work stops being rare and starts being your default. Error. Alchemy. Turning mistakes into learning signals. Mistakes are not verdicts. They are coordinates. When an action fails, your brain generates a comparison between what you expected and what actually happened. If the gap feels like a personal indictment, you tense up, look away, and store the moment as something to avoid. If the gap is treated as a map, you lean closer, extract the precise difference, and update the next attempt. The behavior looks different because the meaning is different. Error becomes useful the second you decide it's information about the task, not information about your worth. That decision quiets the urge to defend and amplifies the impulse to refine. To make errors productive, you need a fast translation ritual. Start by labeling the miss in neutral mechanical language. Not "I blew it, but my timing was late by half a beat," or "my explanation skipped the key constraint." This removes drama and makes the fix visible. Next, isolate one lever. What could I change in the next 5 minutes that would reduce this gap by a small, measurable amount? That lever might be slowing the pace, writing the first line before opening the full document, or asking a clarifying question before proposing solutions. Then, run a micro-iteration immediately. The brain learns on contact. Time weakens the trace. By shipping a tiny correction while the pattern is fresh, you convert a bad moment into a better model. The most common block is shame disguised as high standards. You tell yourself that poor output is unacceptable, so you delay until conditions are perfect. Meanwhile, the system learns that avoiding errors is more important than extracting learning. Flip that incentive. Make the first draft deliberately rough but time-bounded, so the error is small and recoverable. Reward the act of surfacing the gap, not just the final polish. This primes you to gather more data per unit time and builds a habit of rapid calibration. Paradoxically, output quality rises faster because the feedback loop runs more often and with less emotional tax. Here's a field test you can run today. Choose a task where you tend to hesitate, set a 5-minute timer, and produce a minimal version aggressively. As soon as the timer ends, write one sentence about what is clearly off and one sentence about the simplest adjustment that would help. Set another short timer and apply that single adjustment. Stop. Evaluate the delta. If it improved, note the adjustment as a rule of thumb. If it didn't, choose a new lever and repeat once. In under 15 minutes, you will have converted hesitation into 2 or 3 concrete lessons, and your brain will have evidence that quick corrections are safe and effective. Treat criticism the same way. Strip away tone and extract the actionable claim. Translate it into a testable tweak. Run the tweak in a small scope. Keep the parts that move the metric you care about and discard the rest without ceremony. You are not obligated to swallow every opinion. You are obligated to test the few that could sharpen your edge. Over time, you'll build a personal library of error to adjustment mappings. That library becomes your quiet confidence under pressure. Not that you won't miss, but that you'll know exactly how to respond when you do. The transformation is simple. Stop asking, how do I avoid mistakes? And start asking, how do I extract value from the next one? The first question breeds paralysis. The second breeds progress. When your nervous system learns that an error is a fast route to a better version, it stops bracing and starts hunting for signal. You will move faster, feel lighter, and improve more predictably. That is error alchemy. You aren't ignoring failures. You are refining them into fuel, the neuroimmune ripple of mindset. Your brain does not end at your skull. Every thought you entertain sends signals down into the body, and the body talks back. When you appraise a challenge as an unsolvable threat, your system primes for defense. Elevated stress chemistry, shallow breathing, rigid muscles, a bias towards scanning for danger. That state can be useful for seconds in true emergencies, but it becomes expensive when it leaks into daily work. Energy that should fund focus and problem-solving gets siphoned into vigilance. When you reframe the same situation as a worthwhile challenge with a clear first move, your physiology shifts toward mobilization without panic. Heart rate supports action, respiration deepens, and tension becomes targeted instead of global. The change is not mystical. It is a reroute in signaling that lowers unnecessary load and frees resources for execution. This is the neuroimmune ripple. The nervous system and immune system co-regulate. Chronic threat appraisal keeps stress mediators elevated, which pushes your body to favor short-term protection at the cost of long-term restoration. In that mode, sleep quality slips, minor discomforts feel louder, and small setbacks feel heavier than they are. A challenge appraisal does not erase stressors, but it changes their interpretation. The same workload becomes a sequence to complete rather than a wall to brace against. That shift reduces wasted arousal and supports recovery between bouts of effort. Recovery is not a luxury. It is how your brain consolidates learning and how your body resets inflammation and restores baseline. When you protect recovery windows, your attention returns sharper and your tolerance for complexity rises. You feel it as steadier mood, clearer thinking, and fewer spikes of urgency that go nowhere. You can train this ripple with simple levers. Start by catching global threat language and replacing it with specific, solvable framing. This is a disaster becomes this requires 30 minutes of triage and 2 requests for missing data. Specificity tells the body that a plan exists, which quiets the background alarm. Pair that with breathing that lengthens exhales for a minute before hard work and a minute after. You are not trying to relax into a puddle. You are signaling transition. Now we engage. Now we recover. That signal reduces carryover stress, so each work block starts clean. Add 1 short walk or light movement break between mentally intense tasks. Movement helps clear stress metabolites and resets posture that otherwise tricks your brain into thinking danger persists. Your immune system listens to the rhythm of your day. Erratic effort patterns with no closures keep the body guessing and the mind restless. Deliberate closures, even tiny ones, tell the system a chapter ended and it is safe to downshift. Write 1 sentence about what improved and 1 about what you will do next time. That minute acts like a pressure release valve. Over the week, these valves prevent the accumulation of background tension that masquerades as fatigue and cynicism. What feels like a motivation problem is often an allostatic load problem. Too many open loops and not enough genuine off signals. There is also a social dimension to the ripple. Your appraisals are contagious. If you frame every obstacle as a personal attack, teams escalate defensiveness, meetings get heavier, and decisions slow down. If you frame obstacles as tests of process and design experiments to address them, people breathe a little easier and contribute solutions faster. The collective physiology of the group shifts toward coordinated effort rather than fragmented anxiety. You cannot control every variable, but you can be the stabilizing node that keeps the signal clean. Clean signal in, clean behavior out. Try this protocol for a week. Before a focused session, define the challenge in one sentence and the first concrete action. Do 60 to 90 seconds of steady nasal breathing with longer exhales. Work to a small checkpoint. On completion, write what changed in your understanding and take a brief movement break. At day's end, list the 3 loops you closed. You will notice fewer spikes of unproductive stress, better sleep onset, and a clearer sense of progress. That is the neuroimmune ripple doing its job. You did not avoid effort. You reduced unnecessary physiological noise, so more of your effort turns into results. Placebo or nocebo. Belief as a biological input. Belief is not just an opinion. It's a physiological setting that changes what you feel, how hard you try, and how quickly you adapt. When you expect a method to help, your brain primes the systems that detect relief, effort paying off, and subtle signs of progress. Sensations shift first. The same discomfort becomes tolerable because the nervous system is interpreting it as part of improvement rather than evidence of failure. Motivation follows because your prediction says this work will matter. Attention sharpens toward cues that confirm the path. Crucially, this effect is not fake. It's your biology aligning to an expectation that organizes perception and action. The opposite is just as real. If you expect a task to hurt and fail, your body preloads tension, amplifies minor negatives, and withholds effort to conserve energy for the anticipated crash. That's the nocebo in daily life, a belief that drains performance before the work begins. The ethical use of this lever is simple. Set expectations that are optimistic and testable, never magical. Frame the task so that effort reliably produces a signal of improvement within a short window. When you can see and feel progress early, your expectation becomes evidence-based and the system locks in. This is why tiny, visible wins matter so much. A small accuracy gain in a practice run, a clearer paragraph after 5 revisions, a faster first response time on a support ticket. Each win tells the brain your prediction was correct, which increases the value assigned to the next rep. Over days, the loop of expectation, action, and confirmation creates a self-fulfilling pathway where belief and behavior reinforce each other without theatrics. You can install this quickly with a 2-step routine. Before starting, state the useful expectation in one sentence anchored to a measurable cue. In this block, my clarity will improve by one specific change I can point to. Then define the cue you will check at the end. After the block, look for that cue with disciplined honesty. If it's present, name it and bank it. If not, adjust the expectation to something equally realistic and try again in a smaller scope. This protects you from 2 traps. The first trap is empty hype that collapses under scrutiny. The second is cynical overcorrection that refuses to let any expectation be helpful. You want grounded optimism that your nervous system will accept because it gets paid quickly with real feedback. Belief also coordinates groups. When leaders set precise, positive expectations about process and outcomes, teams notice improvement sooner, morale rises, and execution accelerates. When leaders seed nocebo by predicting failure, people brace, creativity shrinks, and even good plans stall. You cannot control every narrative around you, but you can control the frame you bring into the room. Bring a frame that points attention to measurable progress and invites the next actionable step. In practice, this sounds like we expect a clearer decision tree by the end of this meeting, and we'll validate it by running it on one real case. The moment you hit that mark, you've given everyone a proof point that upgrades their internal model of what's possible. Use belief like a scalpel, not a billboard. Cut away unhelpful predictions that amplify pain and paralysis. Shape expectations that increase focus, unlock sustainable effort, and produce quick confirmations that your system can trust. Done consistently, belief becomes a quiet force multiplier. You're not pretending the path is easy. You're choosing an interpretation that makes the path walkable and then proving it to yourself, one measured win at a time. Optimistic patterning in the brain. Optimism isn't blind hope. It's a trained way of simulating the future that recruits specific circuits to guide present action. When you imagine a better outcome with enough detail that you can see the steps, your prefrontal cortex and valuation systems begin to coordinate around that simulation. The picture isn't a daydream. It's a rehearsal that sets priorities. You're telling your brain which signals to amplify and which distractions to mute, so your next move aligns with where you intend to land. The key is precision. Vague positivity doesn't grip the nervous system. A concrete future scene paired with an immediate behavior does. That pairing is what converts outlook into output. There's a simple way to build this pattern. Start by crafting a short, high-resolution snapshot of a near-term win. The moment a proposal is accepted, the line of code that eliminates a bug, the first clean set in a new lift. Notice the sensory details. What you're looking at, what you're hearing, what data confirms success. Then immediately bridge the scene to one action you can execute now. The bridge matters more than the scene. Without a bridge, the image floats away and you feel worse. With a bridge, the image becomes a compass that pulls you into motion. Over time, repeating this sequence teaches your brain to link optimistic simulation with task initiation. That linkage is the habit you're after, because it turns outlook into a cue for action, not avoidance. Optimism also shapes how you interpret friction. If your simulation includes struggle as part of the route, resistance feels expected rather than alarming. You stop reading difficulty as a sign you chose the wrong path and start reading it as confirmation you're on a real one. This keeps effort efficient. Instead of re-evaluating your identity at the first bump, you adjust the plan and keep going. Energy that would have fed doubt gets redirected into the next attempt. The psychological shift is subtle, but the behavioral shift is huge. Minutes that would have disappeared into rumination reappear as iterations. Those iterations compound into mastery. Guard against two traps. The first is fantasy inflation, where the image is so grand it paralyzes you. Pull the horizon closer. Make the scene proximal and verifiable. The second is pessimism dressed as realism, where you pre-compute failure to avoid disappointment. That habit feels safe, but erodes initiative. Replace it with calibrated optimism, a clear picture of success, a sober list of constraints, and one testable step that respects both. You're not promising that everything will work. You are committing to discover what will by moving. The brain rewards that posture with steadier drive because prediction and behavior stay in sync. Here's a micro protocol you can run before your next focused block. Close your eyes for 20 seconds and visualize the exact indicator that proves the block worked. The final paragraph aligned, the unit test passing, the email reply that unlocks a decision. Open your eyes and write the first 90 seconds of action in plain language. Start immediately and work to a small checkpoint. When done, check for the indicator you imagined. If it's there, log it in one sentence. If it isn't, adjust the next step and rerun a shorter cycle. Each time you complete this loop, you strengthen the association between optimistic simulation, concrete effort, and verified result. That association is the neural signature of useful optimism. The more you repeat it, the more natural it becomes to meet uncertainty with a picture and a move, instead of a worry and a stall. You stop waiting to feel confident and start generating confidence through evidence. That's what optimistic patterning really is, not a mood, a method. You are teaching your brain to light up the path you can actually walk and then to walk it. Do this often enough and you'll notice a quiet shift. The future you prefer stops feeling like a wish and starts behaving like a plan that is already underway. Attentional gating, opening plasticity. Windows. Attention is not a light that stays on. It's a gate that opens and closes, deciding which experiences get etched into your brain and which pass by as noise. When the gate is open, small moments reshape skill quickly. When it's half open, you work hard and retain little. The goal is to open the gate on purpose, then close it cleanly so your system can consolidate. That rhythm is the foundation of deep work. You don't need marathon sessions. You need crisp bouts where the objective is clear, distractions are off the table, and the finish line is close enough to touch. In that state, your brain flags the active circuit as important and strengthens it. Gating begins before the first keystroke. Define a target simple enough to hold in working memory without strain. One paragraph that clarifies the promise of the piece, one test that proves the function behaves, one outreach message that advances a decision. When the goal is singular, your mind stops splitting resources between competing threads. Next, make the starting action frictionless. Open the exact file to the exact line. Place the first sentence stub on screen. Line up the inputs you need and nothing else. This primes momentum. The act of beginning is your strongest lever because the brain trusts what is happening over what you say will happen. Once you are in motion, the gate swings wider. The middle of the bout is where most people leak attention. They peer ahead, judge quality too soon, and toggle tabs in a search for relief. That toggling taxes working memory and collapses the gate. Replace it with micro-checkpoints that keep you honest without derailing you. For writing, reach the end of the section before editing. For coding, pass one test before refactoring. For outreach, send one message before analyzing your whole pipeline. These checkpoints are not arbitrary. They are the smallest units that produce visible progress. Visible progress releases enough satisfaction to continue without needing novelty. You feel steady rather than scattered, and the work deepens. Closing the bout is where consolidation starts. Stop at the checkpoint even if you feel a surge to keep going. Capture 2 sentences, what you changed and what comes next. Those sentences are anchors for the next session. They reduce the startup cost, which means the gate opens faster next time. Then step away for a real reset. A short walk, a few slow breaths, a glass of water away from the desk. This reset is not indulgence. It tells your nervous system the chapter ended and it is safe to downshift. In that downshift, your brain replays the pattern you just executed and strengthens it. Skip the reset, and your next bout will start dull and draggy. You can train gating like any other skill. Set a timer for a modest block, such as 20 or 25 minutes. Name the single deliverable. Remove one source of distraction that you know will pull you sideways. Begin immediately with the first 90 seconds scripted. Work until the deliverable is achieved, then close with your 2-sentence log and a brief reset. Repeat the cycle twice. The first repetition teaches initiation. The second teaches your system that this rhythm is predictable and safe. After a few days, you will notice that entering focus feels less like a fight and more like slipping into a well-worn track. That sensation is the gate responding to your cues. If you hit turbulence, diagnose with 3 questions. Was the target singular? Was the first action frictionless? Did you try to judge before you finished a unit? Fix whichever answer is no and run a shorter bout. Shrink the unit until success is nearly guaranteed, then rebuild intensity from there. This is how you protect the gate. You're not chasing heroic effort. You're building reliable focus on demand. Get this rhythm right and your hours stop blending into exhaustion. They start stacking into work you can point to and say that mattered. That is attentional gating in practice, opening the window wide enough for change, then closing it so the change holds. Precision motivation. Calibrating effort, not hype. Motivation fails when it's fueled by noise. You get a rush, then stall, because the brain can't see where to apply force. Precision motivation fixes that by linking desire to a target, a unit of effort, and a finish line you can verify. Think of it as upgrading from fireworks to a laser. Fireworks feel exciting and fade. A laser cuts. The shift begins with calibration. Instead of hyping yourself into action, you choose one valuable outcome, define what progress looks like in the next small window, and price the effort honestly. When cost and benefit are visible, hesitation drops. You're no longer negotiating with a feeling. You're executing a plan that your nervous system accepts because the terms are clear and fair. Start with the unit you can control today. Replace vague goals like be more productive with a concrete deliverable, such as produce a clean draft of the intro section by removing 3 filler sentences and adding 1 clear promise. Now assign a time box that protects intensity without inviting burnout. 15 to 25 minutes is enough to build traction, followed by a short reset that preserves the lens of attention. Tie your reward to the effort, not the outcome. A small ritual after a focused block teaches your brain that showing up with precision is intrinsically satisfying. This pairing is what keeps motivation stable across imperfect days. You don't need ideal conditions. You need a reliable way to convert minutes into movement. Calibrating effort also means telling the truth about difficulty. If a task is complex, pretending it's easy won't help. Break the work into solvable layers and scale your first action to match your current bandwidth. On low-energy days, set micro-commitments that keep the thread alive without draining the tank. On high-energy days, extend your block or add a second checkpoint. This dynamic sizing keeps you consistent, which is the real driver of progress. Consistency compounds because it lowers startup friction. Your brain begins to expect that you will act, and that expectation brings its own momentum. You'll notice less dread before hard tasks and more curiosity about the next move. The language you use matters. Motivation follows the verbs you choose. Swap, try, hope, and someday for actions that can be observed and counted. Write, ship, test, clarify, decide. Verbs like these anchor attention and reduce self-talk that feeds anxiety. Pair them with measurable cues you can check at the end of a session. Did the paragraph become clearer by removing 3 sentences? Did the function pass the new test? Did the outreach get a reply that advances a decision? When the answer is visible, your brain gets the closure it craves and releases the tension that would otherwise bleed into the next block. Closure is fuel. Without it, you keep paying cognitive rent on tasks you already touched. Protect the system from 2 common drains. The first is progress inflation, where you chase more and more effort in a single sitting to feel virtuous. That leads to diminishing returns and a messy recovery. Stop at the checkpoint, log what improved, and step away. Energy saved is energy you can reinvest later. The second is novelty addiction, where you bounce tasks for the thrill of new starts. Limit novelty to deliberate exploration windows and keep your core blocks dedicated to known priorities. This boundary prevents your dopamine from scattering across distractions and keeps it shining on the work that actually moves the metric that matters to you. Run this calibration loop today. Name 1 meaningful outcome for the next hour. Define the first 90 seconds of action. Set a modest timer and start immediately. Do not judge quality until you reach the checkpoint. Close with 2 sentences. What changed and what comes next? Mark the effort with a brief reset. Then decide with clear eyes whether to run another block or switch contexts. That decision is easier because you've already built traction and gathered data. Over the next week, this practice will alter how motivation feels. It will be quieter, steadier, and more convincing. You will start to trust yourself, not because you are louder in your head, but because you've become specific in your actions. That is precision motivation. It turns ambition into a schedule your brain believes and your life can sustain. The ethics of positivity, when it backfires. Positivity is a tool, not a truth. Used well, it sharpens focus, sustains effort, and keeps you aligned with values under pressure. Used poorly, it distorts feedback, suppresses legitimate signals, and delays the fixes that matter. The line between helpful and harmful is simple. Does this frame increase contact with reality and improve the next action? Or does it reduce contact with reality and protect your ego? If a positive story makes you ignore constraints, it's sedation. If it helps you face constraints with a better plan, it's strategy. The job is not to feel good at all costs. The job is to work with clarity, compassion, and precision toward outcomes you actually care about. There are 3 moments where positivity often backfires. The first is signal suppression. A smile pasted over a broken process doesn't heal it. Pain is information. If a task is consistently draining, if a partnership repeatedly misses agreements, if a product keeps generating the same complaint, positivity that tells you to push through can harden dysfunction. Replace suppression with surfacing. Name the problem in plain terms, without blame, and specify the cost of inaction. That honesty doesn't make you negative, it makes you effective. The second is miscalibration. Overconfident timelines and inflated expectations trigger unnecessary shame when reality arrives. Choose calibrated optimism, state the desired end, map the constraints, set buffers, and commit to the next testable step. The third is moral dismissal. Telling someone to just stay positive when they're facing systemic barriers or acute stress is not kindness, it's avoidance. Offer support and structure, not slogans. So how do you keep positivity ethical and useful? Start by making it conditional on evidence. Pair every uplifting frame with a clear behavior to test it and a metric to judge it. If the behavior moves the metric, reinforce the frame. If it doesn't, revise the frame. This keeps you in a scientific posture instead of a superstitious one. Next, distinguish mood from meaning. You don't have to feel upbeat to act with purpose. Respect low days by shrinking the unit of work, protecting recovery, and keeping your promises small and real. That's not quitting, that's sustainable progress. Also, invite dissent in teams. A culture where only positive updates are safe breeds silence and hidden risk. Ask explicitly for what could fail and how you'd know early. When people see that realism is welcome, their positivity becomes trustworthy because it sits beside the full picture. Language is your steering wheel. Replace absolutes with contingencies and specifics. Not "this is amazing, but this is promising because our response time improved by 30% in the last trial." Not everything is fine, but the plan is sound and we've identified 2 failure points with mitigations ready. This style doesn't dampen morale. It grants permission to succeed honestly. It also preserves psychological safety because people learn that truth is not punished. When truth is safe, energy shifts from image management to problem solving. Guard your recovery like a principle, not a preference. Positivity without recovery is a trap. You tell yourself a story that you can handle everything, so you never downshift, and the bill arrives as burnout, irritability, and sloppy thinking. Schedule real endings to work chapters, protect sleep with consistent shut-off rituals, and use movement to clear the residue of intense sessions. Recovery is what keeps optimism grounded. You feel capable because your system is actually capable, not because you've suppressed your limits. Finally, apply compassion with boundaries. Be kind to yourself and others without lowering the bar into meaninglessness. Compassion says mistakes are human and learning is possible. Boundaries say standards matter and accountability is non-negotiable. Together, they create an environment where positivity fuels action, not denial. You move faster because you're not fighting reality or each other. You're aligning around it, adapting and advancing. Use positivity to illuminate the path, not to paint over the cracks. Let it help you name what's possible, locate the next step, and carry enough energy to take it. If a positive frame makes you see more clearly and act more effectively, keep it. If it blurs the view or delays the fix, replace it. That's the ethic. That's how positivity stays a force for progress instead of a costume for fear. The 120-second reframe test. Take a challenge you've been postponing and put it on the table right now. Name it in one clear sentence. Not a story, not a complaint, just the job that needs doing. You're about to run a 2-minute protocol that shifts your brain from defense to direction, turning anxiety into action. Set a timer for 60 seconds. In the first 30, write the smallest concrete outcome you can produce in 5 to 10 minutes that would count as true progress. In the next 30, script your first 90 seconds of action in plain language. No abstractions. Open this file to this line. Draft the first question for this client. Write the function's signature with the 2 parameters you already know. This removes ambiguity, the primary fuel of avoidance. You will feel friction drop because your nervous system recognizes a path instead of a fog. Now set the timer for 60 seconds more. Do a quick state reset so your body follows your intention. Sit upright with both feet grounded. Inhale through the nose for 4. Exhale for 6. 5 rounds. On each exhale, mentally label one concrete benefit of finishing the next microstep. Not glory, not someday, but immediate payoff. Clearer paragraph, passing test, unblocked decision. This is not a pep talk. It's a precision alignment of expectation and action. Your physiology responds to clarity. Heart rate steadies, grip loosens, visual field widens. You're shifting from bracing to doing. When the second minute ends, start your 90-second script without evaluating quality. Movement first, judgment later. When you reach the small checkpoint, stop and label the delta in one sentence. What changed that you can point to? Then label the next simplest move you could make. This closes the loop and installs a fresh one. You just trained your brain to associate challenge with a fast route to traction, not a slow slide into rumination. If you miss the checkpoint, shrink the target and rerun the test immediately on a smaller slice. The point is not perfection. The point is proof. 2 minutes to redefine meaning, regulate state and initiate motion. Run this whenever you feel stuck, especially at the edges of your comfort zone. The more you practice it, the more automatic the shift becomes. You won't wait for motivation. You'll trigger it by demonstrating progress on demand. Your next 2 weeks, designing for wins. For the next 14 days, you're going to stop negotiating with motivation and start running a system that produces it on demand. The plan is simple by design, so it survives real life. Each day has one focus block for a single high-value task, one micro reset to protect attention, and one closure ritual that locks in learning. You will measure effort with visible outputs, not hours wished away. The goal is to turn belief into behavior, behavior into evidence, and evidence into momentum you can feel by day 3 and measure by day 7. Day 1 starts with a commitment you can keep even on a low-energy morning. Choose one target that moves a meaningful metric. The draft that clarifies your message, the test that eliminates a bug, the outreach that unblocks a decision. Define the first 90 seconds of action in plain language. Set a 20-minute timer and begin immediately. Do not evaluate quality until you hit a small checkpoint. Close with 2 sentences. What changed and what comes next? Take a short walk to reset. That's the daily skeleton. It looks ordinary. It's not. It opens the attentional gate, uses dopamine as a focus lens, and teaches your system that effort converts to progress when scoped right. Days 2 to 4, layer consistency. Keep the single block cadence and add a 2-minute reframe before you start. Name the task, script the first step, run 5 slow breaths with longer exhales, then begin. Each day, shrink 1 friction point. Pre-open files, pre-write stubs, pre-collect inputs. Friction steals focus. Remove it in advance and the start becomes automatic. Track 1 metric that matters to this work, not vanity totals. Clarity gained per session, tests passed per change, replies that advance decisions. Your brain wants proof that the story you're telling is true. Give it proof daily and hesitation fades. Days 5 to 7 introduce error alchemy. Choose a task where you've been stuck. Run a deliberate rough pass for 5 minutes, label the miss in neutral language, pick 1 lever to adjust, and immediately run a second 5-minute pass. Log exactly what improved. This is how you convert mistakes into maps. It also desensitizes you to the fear of being imperfect, which is the hidden tax on most people's output. By the end of day 7, you'll have 7 closures and a tangible uptick in speed or clarity. That's your first compounding effect. Days 8 to 10 shift to precision motivation. On days when energy is low, keep the habit alive with micro-commitments, 10-minute blocks that still end with a checkpoint and a reset. On days when energy is high, add a second block, never at the cost of your closure ritual. Always stop at a checkpoint, even if you feel a surge to keep going. Ending clean protects recovery, and recovery protects tomorrow's focus. Continue pairing effort with immediate, modest reinforcement, a satisfying log entry, a brief walk, a quick stretch, so your nervous system learns that showing up with precision is rewarding in itself. Days 11 to 13 are for optimistic patterning. Before each block, run a 20-second simulation of the exact indicator that will prove the block worked. Then write the first 90 seconds and start. At the end, check the indicator. If present, log it as evidence. If absent, adjust the next step and run a shorter cycle. You're teaching your brain that the image you choose becomes a cue for action, not a fantasy to escape into. Expect resistance to feel more ordinary now. Good. That means you're normalizing effort and de-romanticizing struggle. Day 14 is review and design forward. List every loop you closed. Extract 3 rules of thumb that repeatedly produce traction for you. Identify 2 friction points to remove for next week. Choose 1 meaningful upgrade in your setup, like a template that speeds starts or a checklist that prevents known errors. Then schedule your next week's blocks in advance. Momentum dies in empty calendars. Put the blocks on the map so your system can anticipate and prepare. Across these 2 weeks, you will have installed a rhythm. Define, begin, checkpoint, close, reset. You will have practiced reframing threat into challenge, turning errors into adjustments, using belief ethically to increase contact with reality, and opening plasticity windows on purpose. Most importantly, you will have gathered evidence that your mindset is not a mood. It is a mechanism you can operate. Keep the loop small, honest, and repeatable. The results will scale themselves. The biology of a better future. This is the point where mindset stops being a buzzword and becomes a lever you can pull with confidence. You have seen how belief instructs the brain's valuation system, how appraisal organizes attention and action, how dopamine behaves like a focus lens, how errors become maps, how your body mirrors your meaning, how expectations shape effort, how optimistic simulation guides initiation, how attentional gating turns minutes into mastery, how precision motivation replaces hype with traction, how ethical positivity protects clarity, and how a 2-minute reframe can flip you from defense to direction. These are not motivational slogans. They are operating rules for a human nervous system tuned for adaptation. Here is what it all adds up to. Your future is not decided by the size of your goals, but by the fidelity of your loops. Clear belief, precise appraisal, focused bouts, honest feedback, protected recovery. Run these loops and the brain does what it's built to do. Strengthen what you use and prune what you don't. That's why small daily closures change your trajectory faster than grand declarations. Each closure is proof, and proof compounds. The person who waits for confidence waits forever. The person who acts in calibrated cycles manufactures confidence from evidence and carries it forward like interest. If you want a single sentence to carry out of this, take this one. Treat mindset as instructions, not inspiration. Write the instruction before you start. Execute a small, high-fidelity block. Close with 2 sentences and a reset. Repeat tomorrow. Do this for 2 weeks, and you won't need to ask if it works. You'll feel the shift in steadier focus, faster recovery, calmer intensity, and a growing bias toward action. That feeling is your biology aligning with the life you're building, not magic. Mechanism, not noise. Signal. Choose the belief that aims you at reality and progress, and then prove it in minutes, not months. The rest is just repetition with more skill and less drag.